So let me introduce you to what we're drinking as a starting point. If I can,
Because you just told me it's a puer from China, but that's all.
It is a puer from China. That part is true. It's from 2009. It's a show puer, and this is purple tea. So this is the leaf itself is very purple, and the tree is around 35 years old. It's a mix of different seasons, so it's not just one picking. It's throughout the year, and it's at 1,400 meters elevation. So this tea, you can brew it so many times, and it's a really enjoyable tea to just continue brewing throughout an evening or something.
It's really good.
It's not super high caffeine, so you can enjoy quite late at night. I'll often enjoy it at home while I'm doing some work or something in the evening, and you can just brew it as strong as you like as well. It's very flexible. It's very forgiving in the brewing. So really dark color. How would you describe it? It's almost like coffee.
It kind of looks like filtered coffee, yeah. Yeah. The amber color is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a reddish as well.
It's kind of like soil, dark soil in a way.
Does that come from the purple of the leaves?
I don't know, to be honest. I think it's probably more to do with the aging. And this kind of tea, because it's it's cooked, it's artificially aged. It has had a dark color for most of its life, and so the aging process has just like kind of chilled out some of the funky flavors over the years. So this tea is what, how old? 16 years old? 15 years old? It's an old tea. It's half my age. My goodness gracious.
It's very old.
Yeah, super old. Pretty much fossilized. Okay, so anyway, let's jump through a few of the quicker questions in the first part, and you can go into a bit of depth if you fancy. But yeah, first of all, what's your name? Where are you from? And what's your connection to tea?
So my name is Jean, and I am French. I come from France. And what is my relationship to tea? Well, I think my relationship to tea started in Japan in 2019 when I interned at Kyoto Obubu Tea Farm. And at the time, my relationship to tea already was very rooted in my family kind of like gathering culture, where we would always gather for parties or for family lunch, where we would just have tea with food and cakes. And at the time, I would drink only jasmine tea, lapsang souchong, and Earl Grey. And at the time, my favorite was jasmine tea. So when I arrived in Japan and I realized what tea was what was a tea, I was like, oh, it's much more complex than expected, and very interesting. And I kind of got so into it that when I came back in France after the internship I did in Japan, I didn't want to leave the industry, so I worked in a tea shop part-time alongside my studies to learn more about not only Japanese teas but other teas from other countries. So that's where I learned most about the Chinese tea, and that you can also produce tea in Vietnam. And of course, I had no idea, like Vietnam, like Laos, or like I don't know, even Peru or Colombia. So it was a very interesting experience. And then from there, I kept working for tea companies in France, and I went to Nepal, where I lived for 4 months there with the tea farmers and in a tea factory. And then now I'm back at Obubu Tea Farm for a year as an Nesta manager. And it's been a year now, and I am leaving now soon And I don't know what's next for me, but I know I will always enjoy tea, even if I don't necessarily work in the tea industry.
You've had a quite a long relationship with tea then so far, and it's gone through quite a few different phases and different ways of enjoyment and ways of interacting with tea, I would say. So, how has your favorite tea changed from the beginning when you were drinking tea more with your family to the internship to working for a tea company in France to then eventually finding your way back to Abubu?
Well, I think when it comes to tea, I like a lot of things, and I think I didn't like Earl Grey so much at the time when I started because it felt like to me the very intense bergamot, like lemony taste, doesn't fit well, in my opinion, with the roundness of the kind of little bit bitterness, but also the taste of tea. It felt like you were drinking something that has two composite rather than both two things together. Well, for jasmine tea, it was. I think this floralness was mixing itself better with the green tea that it was mixed with, and also the jasmine tea was a little bit lighter as well. So you never had to add sugar or you never had to add milk. While for the Earl Grey, it was very strong. And I liked Lapsang Souchong because it would pair with food very well. So like eggs or toast or any kind of a French breakfast is more sweet, right? And it would pair very well, the smoky flavor. So I think that's how it started. But then I'm not difficult when it comes to tea. As I said, I like everything. I tend to not like when it's very, very too bitter, or even when it's too sweet sometimes. I will enjoy it, but I will not drink it very regularly. Um, so I don't know. I think I like usually very much a tea when I'm trying it for the first time and it's surprising me, and I'm like, oh, I've never tasted something like this before, and then I'll just drink it a lot, a lot, a lot. And yeah, I think right now my favorite teas, it has like changed a lot those past years, but my favorite teas are um, silver needle teas, white tea, and rock oolongs as well. And I love matcha as well. Um, so I think yeah, those three are my favorite teas now.
Do you tend to drink a tea based on the time of day, or is it more about the feeling that it gives you, or flavor, perhaps?
Yeah, I always try and think, oh, what do I want now? And often I would tend to drink matcha more in the morning, because it's fresh and it wakes me up. While in the evening, I want something warm, so I might go for either hojicha or pu'er or rock oolong. Um, so it depends on the time of day, depends on the season as well. I like cold brew in summer, and I feel like Japanese teas are so delicious. Japanese green teas and in cold brew is so good. Um, but in winter, I'm more of a pu'er black tea kind of, yeah, kind of guy. Yeah,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
So it really changes. I think it's very common, this kind of drinking a bit of like changing the teas that you're drinking every day, depending on the temperature, depending on the mood, things like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, connected to that, then I have a question where, like, if you can imagine yourself in a place with your favorite tea, and it sounds like you have a lot of favorites. So, if you can just pick one or generalize, like, generally your favorite teas, where are you drinking it, and who are you with?
Hmm. I really, really like the the tea rooms in Japan, and I think this past year I lived in a house that has a Japanese traditional tea room with a small garden in front of it, and I would just open the walls that are also doors in that tea room, and sit on the tatami and then use the company's tea boat, right? And then just brew the tea the way I want and put water everywhere and just enjoying the calm of the tea room and the small garden. Who I am with is, I don't know, I feel like as long friends, obviously, like really good friends, and not necessarily somebody that's really into tea. I like either going into very big detail about like the tea and tea in general with people who have a lot of already a strong relationship to tea, but I also really like introducing people who have no idea in this setting about tea, I think. But then I think the type of tea I would choose would be different depending on the person I'm with. I think I would tend to, when I'm with somebody, take into consideration more what the other person wants, I think. Rather.
You're a very kind tea brewer.
I don't think so. You know why? Is because I don't want to handle judgment. So, for instance, if I'm with somebody who doesn't know tea, I will not brew a pu'er. I will not brew a white tea, because if I brew a white tea, I've heard things like, oh, like it doesn't taste like anything to me, or oh, this tastes like, pu'er can taste very fermented, right? And it can taste very animal. So it can, I don't want to handle that. And then with somebody that's like very into tea, I feel like I don't brew very like common tea, like especially for instance in Japan, I wouldn't be like brewing genmaicha on a tea boat with like and being like, oh, this is delicious, best genmaicha ever, even though I love genmaicha. And I would go more for something that maybe a personal tea batch that I have, something that they might not have drink before, rather than just going with very common tea, because I don't want to handle judgment, I think, rather than because I want them to have a nice time. Because I feel like if I'm bringing in my chat, they're gonna have a nice time, right? Because it's delicious. So
maybe it's a bit of both, because the way you're saying it, like if you take judgment out of the equation, you're focusing on what are they going to enjoy the most. They might not appreciate pu'er, they might not appreciate white tea.
A little bit, yeah, it's true. Yeah, because I want them to like tea.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll be like, oh, if I give them something so difficult to drink, then they will be like, oh, that's not for me.
That's very nice. You're a kind tea brewer. I had no idea.
Not all the time.
But, I don't know about you, but there's something to be said for finding a tea that you haven't tasted before and just sitting down by yourself and just drinking through it and drinking through the different infusions to really get to know the tea a bit better. I'm a big fan of that. I don't do it a lot, but it has such a peaceful, like, relaxing quality to it, to like critically analyze the tea itself and just think about the production that went into it, which is very selfish. Just sit there and brew tea by myself. I don't offer to other people. But
no, I totally understand. I am a lonely tea drinker as well. So I would, honestly, when you asked me the question, I almost answered, I would rather have nobody around, to be honest. But most of the time, yeah, I drink tea alone. So I totally understand. Because I don't have to handle this, oh, what tea should I pick for the person? I can just pick the tea I want to drink. So I totally understand.
Why? It's there's many different ways to enjoy tea, and I think that's one of the beauties of it, right? You can enjoy with a lot of people, or you can sit by yourself and think about the tea you're brewing, or just enjoy the moment. There's so many ways to enjoy tea.
When I'm brewing tea with very close friends that I've been knowing for a long time, or that have known tea for a long time as well, I tend to brew tea that are extremely unexpected, and then I don't say what it is, and then I'm just like, oh, so what do you think of this tea? And I did it recently in the office at Obubu, where I brewed oat with rose, I think.
Yeah.
And I asked people what it was, and of course everybody was a little bit confused. Is it like, what is this? I don't think it's tea. I don't like this, something like that. Which I think is a more of a genuine answer, because if I said, oh, it's oat and rose, a lot of people who don't like rose would have said, oh no, I won't like that, and we're not like that. But I know that I gave this to Sarah, one of Sarah, who usually doesn't like rose, and she liked it better than she expected. So I like doing this, but I need to make sure that people won't think like, oh, Jean is the type of person who drinks this.
Yeah.
It's more, oh, I sometimes I enjoy different things.
I guess also you should probably make sure they don't have any allergies. Because we do have one assistant manager at the moment that's allergic to ginger.
Oh no.
So, and that's,
I mean, yeah, I never, but at the same time, I feel like if I give somebody a cup of tea and they're allergic to something, like they should tell me like, oh, like I'm allergic to this, so I hope this not in there. Like I'm not careful about this, to be honest. Maybe I should be more careful. I don't know if anybody can be allergic to rose and oat.
I don't know.
Oat. I mean, you're allergic to the dust of it, but then
it's an infusion. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should start thinking about this.
Well, I don't know, but there are some weird allergies out there now.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, if you'd put cat hair in it, I'd have been out. You'd have killed me.
I would have never done that.
Yeah, I mean, well.
Yeah, okay. I'll think about it. But it's funny to not tell.
But no, I do agree with you. When you give somebody a tea, because it's something I do in the office all the time. When I'm brewing a tea in the office, I give it to people and I say, "You tell me what it is," because it's a fun guessing game. It also helps people train their tongue to like connect the flavors that they're experiencing with what type of tea could it be, what cultivar is it, and all of those parts. And I think it's a really helpful activity to do. And I don't do it enough for myself, and it's something that I wish I did more, because when you did that and you brewed that oat and rose tea, I was a bit bamboozled. I was like, what is this?
What is this?
What is this? So it's a fun activity to do. I enjoy doing it, but on both sides, it's really good training for you. So thank you for the opportunity. Okay, so on to another question. Now, it sounds like a similar question to one we've already had, but actually I think the answer could be quite different. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. How often are you drinking tea per day or week? And what is your most regularly drunk tea? Don't read that as what is your favorite tea.
Yes.
Read that as what is your most regularly drunk tea.
Very recently, and so far it really depends on where I am, because that's where different teas are mostly available. So here I drink a lot of hojicha because it's very easy to drink, and I drink quite a lot. So I always brew hojicha at home, at least, and also in the office there's always hojicha brewing, because I think at Obubu we are hojicha lovers. Yeah. So there's always hojicha brewing. So I think right now, any kind of hojicha, any kind of roasted tea. But for instance, in Nepal, obviously, I didn't have hojicha, but I had a oolong that was a little bit lightly oxidized, and that was extremely floral, that we were drinking all the time, all day long. Very strong brewed as well. And then when I was in France, I had a lot of silver needle, because even though it's very high in caffeine, you can brew it so many times that you just have to put the leaves in the teapot in the morning and then keep brewing the whole day. And it's easier. You don't have to clean the teapot and then choose the next tea, and you don't even have to think about the wet tea, because it can brew for very long without being so strong in flavor. And I love it. It's one of my favorite teas. When it comes to the quantity, it depends. Sometimes I don't drink tea the whole day when I'm in France. I would drink coffee instead, and I wouldn't drink tea. But in Japan, I eat tea all the time. I don't really have a choice, because even if I don't brew for myself, there will be somebody during the day who'll be like, "Here, have a cup of tea." So yeah, it really depends where I am, I think. and who I'm with, because my family is not they're not big tea drinkers. They will drink tea when we're gathering together in the afternoon with the French 4 p.m. goûter break, where we'll eat as well. So we'll drink tea once in the afternoon and not every day. So the only way I can drink tea in France is usually when I brew it for myself. So it really depends where I am and who I'm with. Yeah.
I don't think, but that's very true. I'm just thinking back because I drink a lot of tea. Like I start my day with, I never thought this would be me, but I start my day with about 500 milliliters to a liter of green tea every morning. Like that's my just morning thing I do. I sit down, brew some tea. But when I'm traveling, if I'm going to different places, it's hard to do that. So, in the summer when I was out of Japan and in China, I took little like individual sachets of matcha with me. And so if I'm on the go and I didn't have any tea in the hotel or something, then I was able to buy a 500 milliliter bottle of water, empty this 1.5 grams into the bottle, shake it, and then I've got like a tea or matcha infused water infused matcha infused water, and I could just drink that, and that would be enough. But it's like I definitely need my tea every single morning, otherwise I feel a bit weird. And more than that, I usually have to have a certain type of tea, otherwise I feel a bit weird. So like I have to have green tea in the morning. If I have black tea, it throws me off kilter.
What?
It's a bit strange.
Okay.
But it's also something you get a little bit used to as well. So I just need some like adjustment time, and then those things go away. But when I was in Nepal as well, of course I wasn't drinking green tea every morning. I was drinking a black tea, and drinking a lot more white teas and other stuff like that. So I think it just changes where you are. But I can't live without tea. I think I'd probably, I don't think
go
I'd
crazy.
survive. Yeah. Even coffee, like you said that sometimes you would probably drink coffee over tea when you're in France. Yeah. Which, is understandable, but I don't think I could do it.
Oh, okay.
I think I'd struggle.
Okay. You could have coffee, but you can't have only coffee, right?
Yeah. Like I really like a nice coffee. So even, when I'm working from home or over the weekend perhaps, sometimes I have a coffee after lunch. That's quite nice. I quite like that. A nice pick-me-up. And actually with some dried dates. Coffee and dried dates after lunch. Great combo.
Yeah.
Great combo. Anyway, sorry. Enough about my coffee drinking.
No, please. I always forget to send back the questions because I'm so focused and I'm stressed. And I'm like, I need to answer properly, and I shouldn't say anything that's politically incorrect.
No, I mean, it's not really about me having an interview here, right? So, like, if the questions don't come back, it's absolutely fine. It's about finding out a little bit more about Jean and tea. So, it's we have a lot of questions as well.
Okay,
so don't worry. So, I have a question that you'll be familiar with. What tea-related purchase of $100, euros, pounds, or what do we say, under 20,000 yen or less have you most enjoyed in the last 6 months or in recent memory? Please give as much detail as possible. Tea people are always looking for good recommendations, so shop name, website, location, something like that.
So I think it's more than 100. So I can't add it. I can't say that. But it's really the one I've used the most. It's Tokonami teapot from Japan. But it was very expensive. But nonetheless, there are other Tokonami teapot that are a little bit cheaper that are there's something magical to this teapot, and I think there's something magical about most of the Tokonami teapots. The one I bought it directly from the pottery maker, and it's a tiny style teapot, so it really doesn't look like a Japanese teapot, and it's beautiful and it's very small, and I love it, and I use it all the time. And I like very small teapots because you can bring them everywhere. And because they're small, you're usually putting teas that you're infusing many times. So for this teapot, I chose to brew mostly pu'ers. So I would just drink pu'er all day, the same pu'er all day. So it's very, I don't know, it's very practical and very nice. Yeah. I think when you go to Tokonami, you can find a lot of like really nice.
For those
really
that
nice
don't know,
things.
could you introduce Tokonami?
For people who don't know Japan so much, it's like it's very it's south of Nagoya, and it's next to the not far so far from the sea, right, on the ocean.
It's on the ocean.
And it's on the ocean, and it's beautiful, and the town, and this is where there's a lot of pottery history in this town, and there are a lot of pottery shops, and it's very specific, centered around tea also a lot. I mean, not only, but a lot of teaware potteries. And the clay there has specific color. It's very beautiful, like a reddish color. And there are a lot of pottery artists that have different styles. So when you go from one shop to the other, they look completely different. And there was also an anime movie that takes place in Tokonami.
Which one?
A Whisker Away. It's a little bit of it's strange, like anime, a little bit crazy anime, but it's also a little bit cute, and it takes place in Tokonami.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And the main character just walks around the streets, and it's very recognizable because the streets have big pots, Tokonami pots. It's very pretty. I think it's a very good day trip because there's not a lot of things to do. It's mostly pottery shops, but the place is so pretty that going around and walking around the town is really nice. And in a day, you can do everything, and you can, I would definitely recommend.
Okay, so here's one that, I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this, and if you can't, please don't worry. Just go, yeah, I don't have anything. What is the book or books you've most gifted, and why? Or what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life?
Gifted?
Yeah. Or what are the 1 to 3 books that have most greatly influenced your life?
I don't gift books. I don't. Yeah,
that's fine. Okay,
it's not a gift I think books. About because yeah. However, the books that like most influenced my life are absolutely not related to tea, so I hope that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm very much of a bookworm, but especially when I was a kid, and I think the one that obviously most influenced my life were the one I read as a kid. And they're all fantasy and fiction books. And so when I was very young, there was a series of books called it's in French, the title, La Cabane Magique, which is very much for kids, and introduced me to reading. And there's like maybe 50 books, and it's the story of 2 children who find a small house in the wood on top of a tree, and that has a lot of books. And when they open the book, they go into the book, and it's mostly history books or books related to places. So they will travel to ancient Greece, and always trying to find a way back home to the forest home. And I think it was I was very young. I was maybe 7 or 6. So when I just started reading books. So I think it really influenced my life because I was like, oh, there's all of those cool places in history and on the planet. So that, and then I think another fantasy book that was written by Robin Hobb, which is not the name of the writer. It's the writer's
pen
name, which is about royalty bastard, like no,
He's illegitimate.
yeah,
An
he's
illegitimate child.
illegitimate, and he's used as an assassin to in the royal like social place, an assassin or not necessarily an assassin, but like a spy or something like that. And we follow the story of this child who's first let down because he's illegitimate, and then the royal family realizes that he may be used as a weapon against them, so they think maybe we should use that person as a weapon. Anyway, it's very nice and it's very fantastic. There are even like magical beings involved, but I really liked it because it felt it was a very complex story. I think I like that. I don't know. There's no depth to it in terms of like, oh, because it has this meaning or it says that. It's just a very long book, and I read very fast. So the fact that it was very long allowed me to like read a lot. It's very much not related to tea. I think the only moment when they talk about tea is when the character puts poison in the tea to like kill somebody. So it's maybe not. Yeah. So maybe it teaches me to be careful and to like, not drink things without knowing what it is.
But you're happy to give.
But I'm
tea
happy to do
people.
it myself.
Yeah.
Like be like, oh, you don't know what it is? Maybe it's poison.
Interesting. Okay.
Very much not related to tea. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. I mean, novels are always a good way to escape into like a new world and experience new things, and I think that also reflects in what you've already said about tea as well. You always like to find new things with tea too. So I'm seeing a theme. Okay, so let's do. Okay, this is a good one. Doesn't even necessarily need to be tea related. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? Could be money, time, energy, anything.
Investment.
Yeah.
I think my studies in terms of time, in terms of money for sure, because it's a private school in France and it's expensive when you compare it to public schools in France, because public schools in France are free. But it's not really about the money because my parents paid for that, so it doesn't feel like I paid. But time definitely, because it was 6 years. Because I did 2 masters, so it had to be longer than 5 years. So 6 years is a long time where I was not necessarily able to work as much as I wanted, or to make money, or to learn always what I wanted to learn, because in Europe, and especially in France, you get a master's degree in order to get a master's degree, and not always necessarily to actually get actual knowledge. I've been lucky because I chose master's degrees that were very practical as well, and very down to earth, and I did learn a lot of things that were useful, but I also learned a lot of things that were useless, or that not because they're useless in itself, but that they were useless to me and to what I wanted to do with my future. So, like for instance, I had classes about mechanics or physics that I hated so much, and it used a lot of my energy and time. But I'm really happy I did it, because now I have degrees that I can put forward and use. But not only that, it actually gave me a lot of opportunities as well, because I got to do a lot of internships, and internships are really good to experience things. They're short experience where you can go anywhere without feeling like you're how to say when you
making a huge commitment.
Yeah, commitment, exactly. You're not making a huge commitment, and you're not it's not going to last a long time, and you can leave it if it doesn't, like if you don't like it or things like that. So it's more flexible. So I think, yes, this was a really good investment, I think, now that I finished it 1 year ago only. So maybe I'll even like learn about how good of an investment it was in the future as well.
Be
Yeah.
interesting to look back on it 5 years later.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I'll be like, oh, that was useless. But why did I use so much time? I don't think so. But
I don't think so either.
no.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
In the last 5 years?
In the last 5 years.
Well, I started drinking tea very regularly 5 years
That's
ago,
true,
so
yeah.
I think that counts. I actually the amount of tea I drink has changed as well, as we were saying before, and it's been only 1.5 years that I've been drinking a lot of tea every day. And that's because in Nepal I was surrounded by it, and in Japan I'm surrounded by it. And I feel like when I come back to France, I have to keep drinking a lot, maybe a little bit less. But before that, I could go several days without drinking tea. Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. But I still really loved tea, and I still really wanted to work in tea. But I think, how to say, it's very difficult to access very high quality tea in France. And when you do, it's also very expensive. And I was still a student. So I think I was not necessarily drinking tea very often. I was always drinking tea during the week, at least once, of course, but more as a like, oh, it's kind of a luxury because the tea I like are very expensive. Yeah, and there's not as much. Even hojicha feels expensive in France. It feels always like, ugh, why is it so expensive?
But having experienced all the different tea places you've now experienced, you, I think, probably have a lot of tea contacts who you could contact, purchase tea from them, ship it over, and that makes things a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I'm also a different tea drinker, so I wouldn't mind buying a huge amount of tea at once and ship it to France directly from the producers. So it's gonna be easier. I think it has improved my life because it's just a way of slowing down. And just being like, okay, now I will take time to brew the tea because I also have very like high expectations when it comes to tea. I also have to brew it in a certain way, so that way it takes time. And yeah, it's really good. I think it's also, even in France, it's kind of socially accepted. Like I worked in tea companies, so that helps. But the tea companies would always give us time on our working hours to stop and just brew tea for 10 minutes and drink tea, and that kind of has really helped, I think. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I start brewing a tea, like for me, I don't get that feeling of satisfaction after having brewed it just once. I want to have brewed it maybe 3 times or 4 times before I have that feeling of, oh, that was nice.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
I think for me depends on the tea, obviously. If I brew tea on
matcha.
I mean, yeah, you can't brew. You can't. Yeah, but I mean, if I brew white tea only one time, I feel like I wasted it, and and I feel a little bit anxious. I'm like, oh, I wasted like very good tea. But for instance, I wouldn't mind brewing hojicha one time and then like, to be honest. But I know you don't do that. I know you brew even hojicha, you brew it very like a lot of times.
Yeah. I guess the purpose is different. Now, I'm thinking about what I've said, and if I'm in the office, I'll probably brew in what I've copyrighted as the waterfall method, where you have one pitcher where you're pouring the tea into, you have the teapot, which is angled, and then you have another pitcher full of hot water. So then you can just pour it like a pour over, and it flows into the teapot, then straight into the pitcher. And this way you can brew a lot of tea in a short space of time. And you can hand it out to everybody in the office. And that way around, I don't feel like that so much because I'm not focused on the tea so much. I'm more focused on work and brewing quickly and being able to enjoy delicious tea, share it with other people, but also just go back to work. If I'm brewing a tea that's not during work hours, or it's a tea that I need to concentrate on, I have to brew it a few times.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't feel good about it.
And
not in a way that's like, oh, I'm wasting this leaf, but in a like feeling of like, oh, I haven't had a break to enjoy the tea. So I think it's more of a lazy thing rather than, or in fact wanting to focus and have more of a break to enjoy the tea. Like, I don't have that satisfaction if I haven't sat down and brewed it a longer time. Anyway, it's not.
No, but I see what you mean, because it feels like there's two different ways of drinking tea when you are actually drinking tea and then you're drinking tea with work, like working and drinking tea at the same time. But you're doing this because you can do that. I can't do that. That what I mean is, like, if I do something else while I'm brewing tea, I will suffer the consequences.
I mean, we saw it earlier today.
Because I will either forget that I'm brewing tea, so it will be overbrewed and too strong, or I will forget I have tea in my cup, so it would just go cold.
Oh no!
So I can't do both at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, there's many different ways to enjoy tea, right? And actually, sometimes when I come across a green tea which has gone cold, I taste it and I think, oh wow, that's good. That's really good. So I think it depends on the tea.
It's not always bad, yeah.
It's not always bad. If it's a black tea, some black teas when it goes cold, you're a bit like, oh, or hojicha. I often feel like that about hojicha. It needs to be either really hot or it needs to have been cold brewed.
Yeah.
I struggle with a lukewarm hojicha. It's like, oh, what's this?
What's this? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I see. Oh.
Okay, right. Let's knock through a few questions. And then I'm thinking maybe in 10-15 minutes, we take a time out. We start brewing another tea.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had one lined up for you. Okay, yes. Connected to tea. This is more of a tea-related question.
Okay.
What are bad recommendations you hear people giving about tea? And you don't have to name names if you don't want.
So that person... bad recommendations.
Yeah, bad recommendations from people.
So many. Okay. You should. A bad recommendation would be. No, actually, it's. I don't know, because many low ones, but not a lot. Bad recommendations. I think it's difficult. I think, okay, one that is a little bit strange, but I don't like when I talk about tea or other people talk about tea and give very rigid, very strong rules and limit, as in like, oh, you shouldn't do it like that, or you should do it like that. It's because to me tea, it's more of a, oh, if you like it this way, or if you don't like it this way, then yes, you should or shouldn't. It's not, oh, there's a proper way of making tea or brewing tea, that if you do not follow, then it's bad. I don't know how it can be bad, but it's bad. I don't know. It's more, I think it's always the drinkers and the consumers' expectations and wants and needs that needs to be considered, and then from there giving recommendations, rather than going with the recommendations. So for instance, if you have I don't know, a tea drinker that tell you, or somebody who doesn't necessarily know tea that tells you, like, I don't like cold brew because it's bitter, then you try and investigate how they make the cold brews, and if they brew it hard and then cool it down, then the recommendations would be, oh, maybe you should brew it cold from the start and then for a long time, rather than brewing it this way. But it shouldn't be, oh, cold brew should always be cold brewed, because in the end, if you want to do cocktails or mixes, or if you want to add things after, or if you really like very bitter teas, then yes, it's totally fine to first brew it hot and then cool it down, because you will extract all of the aromas right with the warm or hot brew. So it's I think, yeah, the recommendations I don't like are when the it's only useless recommendations given out of the blue, just like this. Even when I hear a lot in Japan, people say you shouldn't brew green tea at a high temperature. I think it is true that you shouldn't only and always brew tea at a high temperature, as in you should try other ways of brewing it. That is true. I would always recommend to everybody to try different things. But if you like it strong, if you like it at a high temperature, then please do. I know Aki-san brews his green tea at high temperatures for very long with a lot of leaves. And nobody's going to tell him, you're not doing it the right way, right, because it's Aki-san, a tea farmer. So yeah, I think that's the bad recommendation. I don't have specific examples. So.
That's fine. Yeah. I had a recommendation, or it's not recommendation, but someone told me one time, white tea, silver needle tea, super low caffeine because it's only the buds.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like,
that's kind of a bad recommendation.
But then over time I found out actually it's totally the opposite. So when people like try and teach me things, I usually have to try and find at least a second source to corroborate to be able to say, okay, that's true. So sometimes people give some funky education, but it's also true that different tea producing countries have different sources of information from their research bodies. So those things change too. So it depends.
Yeah. Well, if you brew your silver needle on ice, then you don't have that much caffeine.
Right.
But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. It's true. I think it's the most commonly heard recommendation that it's not only a bad recommendation, it's just not true. Like as in like
lies.
Yeah, lies. But it also there is a very fixed relationship between a tea that tastes strong and a tea that tastes mild, and how good or bad they are for your body. So the stronger it tastes, usually it's considered to be more caffeinated, better for your health, or actual tea. While when it's very light, it's more like, because it's very light, it should be light in caffeine as well, which is obviously not related. But yeah, it's a quite a bad one. Yeah,
there's a lot of those out there that it makes it difficult for people. So I mean, okay, related to the end of this topic, let's have one more question before we take a time out. And this one is a little bit strange, but we'll give it a go.
Okay.
What advice would you give to a college student who is interested in working with tea, or university student who's interested in working with tea, and what advice should they ignore?
A college student. So when you say that, you mean maybe somebody just young or doesn't have a lot of experience yet?
Between 16 to 21, 22. In your case, 24.
Yeah. Don't I would say don't be afraid to just go out there, travel, and invest a lot of your energy and time into things because you're afraid that maybe something bad will happen. Because in the end, if you plan correctly, and if you, not necessarily planning, but if you make sure that you are safe, then nothing will happen to you. So of course, I wouldn't recommend that you rush into New Delhi in India as a very young, teenager or young college students alone without any help, of course. But I would recommend that you try and travel the world, or not necessarily travel the world, but even sometimes look around you. Because, for instance, if you're French, there are tea farms in France that have more of a touristic kind of an experimental way of doing things. But learning about tea there is very good. So even if it's not about tea, even if it's about something else, usually it's the same thing. If you want to learn about coffee, then there are coffee roasters probably next to you that have connections, and don't be afraid to just knock at their door and put yourself forward. Also, do not underestimate your skills. do not overestimate them either. But honestly, I would recommend that you overestimate rather than you underestimate them. Because if you overestimate your skills, maybe you'll piss people off around, but then you'll try and try and try, and you'll get to a point where you will experience something great. So I would rather say, please overestimate yourself rather than underestimate yourself. And a bad recommendation would be to
some bad advice to ignore.
Advice to ignore?
Yeah.
Especially when people who think they have a lot of experience, or actually do have a lot of experience with life in general, that they will tell you, believe my experience, don't do this or don't do that. We are all different. And maybe that person doesn't like to, I don't know, settle in a place and, I don't know, have kids, or it's just an example, of course, but that person maybe is regretting that they were not traveling or going around the world, and is telling you to do it. But the thing is, if you as a person wants to settle, just listen to yourself. When I'm saying, you should try and discover things, I'm saying you should do it if you want to. I don't know how to explain it. I feel like you shouldn't let people just change your life because, you should do that because it's socially acceptable. No, you should do whatever you want, as long as you're not putting yourself into a very bad situation, or as long as you're not harming people around you, then you should just do whatever. And I think I would give this advices because when I did my first internship and I came in Japan, I never traveled before. I never went out of France either. And it was a little bit crazy. And a lot of people told me but what are you going to do there? What? What is happening? But I did it anyway. So yeah. I don't know. This is very messy. This is not very clear.
I think it's a good answer because, a lot of the time, you must have felt like this perhaps when you were younger, but you're not quite sure which way to go or how to tackle something. But it's important for people to just go and try, go and talk to people, go and make mistakes, go and try and intern somewhere, and if it's totally crazy, it's not that long, and you've got a lifelong journey ahead of you where you've had this crazy experience that you can look back on and you can compare things to. So especially when you're young, you should plan, but give it a go, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more about doing whatever you feel like doing without putting yourself into a situation where you can't really come back to a secure place. And I think that's also why I decided to do long studies, because I felt like there would be a point in my life where I would like to have I would like to settle. But the thing is, if you do not have degrees in France, if you do not have professional experiences, and you just have nothing to put forward, then it's difficult to find a job and settle. I think I was a little bit scared of being unemployed, basically, and I kind of always invested time to get new skills. But in the end, there's also a lot of pressure for a lot of people about, everything you should do should make sense so that you can get a job or something like this. But in the end, if it feels right to you, it probably makes sense. As in, a lot of people would say, why would I go at the opposite side of the planet, and how do I justify that I did that? Well, if you feel like it and you feel like you can learn something from it, and it's not because you're not going away from your problems in your country, you're just wanting to discover something new, then I think you should do it. I think you shouldn't think I shouldn't go to Japan for 3 months because it's crazy, or go to Japan for 1 year because what am I going to do after that? It's always sometimes good to think about, oh, I want to do it now and it will make me happy, so maybe I should do it. Yeah. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense.
No, it makes sense. And actually what you've just said is what happened to me when I was younger. I before I ever dreamt of coming to Japan. Japan never entered my sphere of, oh, that would be cool to go to. Never ever. I went to Darjeeling and I did a tea tasting course just south of Darjeeling, and I had no plans after that. That was the only thing that was planned during that trip, and it just so happened that on that course I met a lady who co-owned a factory in Nepal. So that's the only reason I then went, oh, okay, let's go to Nepal.
Oh.
And I spent a whole bunch of time there. I met a load of cool people there who then took me around to other tea projects and did some consulting there, did teaching on 2 different courses during my time there, talking to farmers and tasting their teas, tell them how to improve their teas. And none of those things would have happened if I hadn't have decided I'm going to go and do a tea tasting course in Darjeeling. And having the course there helped me have something secure, planned, and I knew a bit about before I went. So I had a kind of a secure base to start from, and then I was able to kind of find my way from there. If you're a friendly, kind, polite person, then you can't go far wrong. Good people find good people. So, but just having the confidence to be able to go and do it. So, but I received very mixed information from within my own family. Some members of my family were like, "You're young, George, just go and do it. You're not going to regret it when you're older, having gone away for a while." Other members of my family were, George, you've got this far in what you're doing right now. Why do you want to throw that away and all that progress you've made to go and do something completely unrelated? Like, it doesn't make sense. So, you take all of these inputs, but you've got to eventually decide for yourself. Otherwise, someone else running your life. As long as you're happy, making other people happy around you as well, all together.
What would you say is a bad recommendation?
Something that makes you feel, that doesn't feel right. Because you have it inside, like you have a gut feeling. Some people, it takes longer for you to formulate a gut feeling than others. I know that. But some people, they know immediately. But if your gut feels wrong about a decision, there's a reason for it. And maybe you've got to go, oh, okay, that's why I feel bad about it, but it's going to be better in the long term anyway. And you just make the most of the situation you're putting yourself in. Or you go, actually, no, like, I don't feel good about that. That's not going to be right for me. And you can make a decision that way, and it's a bit easier. So follow your gut. Don't follow other people dictating your life.
Okay.
From me, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, oh, will that make me happy? Yes. Then can I do it? If you can, then maybe probably you should. But if it's like, oh, it's not gonna make me happy, then you shouldn't do it. And even if it would make you happy and you can't do it, then what can you do to make it happen anyway? What can you like invest to make it happen? And I think for me, when I realized that I wanted to work in the tea industry, I saw all of the barriers and I saw all of the problems and the fact that it's a very small world and it's very difficult to get in. And I thought, what should I do to make it easier for me to work in the tea industry? And I felt like, oh, I should take all of the opportunities possible to go and learn about tea. Yeah. And then get a job in tea. Yeah.
And you've spent a year doing that. You came back and spent a year doing that. So
I also looked for it. I tried to work in a tea shop. I tried everything I could, and I thought, if I want to work in tea, then I should go 100% or not at all. That's the only way you can actually stay in the tea industry, because it's very small world, difficult to get in. Yeah.
I found that. I tried to get loads of tea jobs in the UK, but it never worked out. So, yeah. Well, you've got to be in the right place at the right time.
Mm.
You got to be a good person.
Luck is a little bit in the balance as well. It's true. A little bit.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
I often say I am the luckiest person in the world.
Oh.
And anyway, right. I'm sorry if you've been able to hear my stomach. It's been.
I actually don't know if it's me or you. So.
It's definitely me.
Okay.
100% me.
Okay.
So I apologize.
No.
But let's take a time out there.
Yeah.
And we'll be back.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Yeah.
And we've had a little bit to eat. We've had we've got some different tea. We've got some black tea now. And this is a purple leaf black tea, and it was produced in 2022. And it's from the same farmer. It's a very delicious tea. It's very nice. I've stored it very gently in this clay jar for how many months? About 6 months.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's just been hanging out. And yeah, that's actually something I want to play around with this year, is different storage methods. I want to test out the chabako storage. Just straight in the chabako.
Do you have a chabako?
I have a sauce. No, I've got how many chabako? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 chabako.
Oh.
But all different sizes. So I have one very small one, which you could put probably 150 grams of tea. So I want to put in some very fresh Centre of the Spring Sun, and then test that storage against regular packaging, against vacuum packaging, and then also storing like in a glass jar or whatever, and just see how that differs. Anyway, before we dive in, is there anything do you need to adjust?
More tea, perfect.
You need more tea. Do you need to adjust the heater at all, or
do you want the heater?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is an unusual habit or strange thing you enjoy?
Yes. You know what, Ed? It's a very difficult question. Do you think you could answer it for yourself? And then maybe that will give me an idea.
Okay. Unusual habit or strange thing you enjoy? Unusual habit or strange thing you enjoy? Okay, here we go. Whenever I am in tea fields or walking on just a country walk, if I see a large, wide blade piece of grass, I have to pick it and turn it into a trumpet. Because it makes this crazy noise. Okay. It's a lot of fun. And it's a strange thing I enjoy.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, it's difficult to say. It's a difficult question, I know. But I just had to think, and that's the first thing that popped into my head.
Okay, what do I... I guess... I don't know. Strange thing. Maybe it's something my friend could answer better than I would, because I don't think I do anything that's like super strange. I mean, I don't know.
That's fine.
I like vacuuming, but it's not a habit. I mean,
it is a bit strange.
It is a bit strange that I like vacuuming.
Mark, if you want to have a think. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, okay.
Come back to it at the end. Okay. When you feel overwhelmed, unfocused, or have temporarily lost your focus, what do you do to regain your focus?
Something else. I do something else. Yeah. If I can't focus on something, I just do something else. And I don't put on myself the pressure of I'll do something else and then I'll come back to it. I just think, okay, I need to stop, and maybe I won't come back to it. It's not the end of the world. Of course, when it comes to work, when I have to come back to it, I do the same, but I had this little bit higher pressure of like I'll have to go back to it at some point. But when I'm very lost and unfocused, yeah, I do something else. When I realize that I'm forgetting a lot of things, sometimes I just sit on the chair and I'm just like, okay, calm down, or okay, like focus on one thing and do that, and then
yeah.
I mean, I think I just stop. I just stop doing whatever I'm doing, and then I decide whether I do something else or whether I keep going. But most of the time, I just do something else. I just give up. I just
Task
I can't.
switching.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah,
like
yeah.
task switching.
I mean, in my private time, let's say if I read a book and I can't, which honestly never happens, but let's say I read a book and I don't feel super focused, then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm hungry, or maybe I don't know, maybe I need to drink something, or oh, you know what, I feel a little bit like, or I'll get a hot shower because that will help me like relax and cool down or something like that. But I don't necessarily think about, and then after I'll be able to focus. I just think, oh, I'm not well. I need to do something to fix that. Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you for
What
sharing.
about you? What about you? What do you do?
If I can't focus on something, usually this will happen if I've been sat down for too long. If I'm sat down at the computer for too long, I'll to be honest, it's not really focus. It's more like I'll fall asleep. So I would, or like if I get like I'm struggling to focus on something, I'm getting a bit tired, I just get up, walk around, maybe go make a cup of tea and have a talk to somebody. And talking to someone else kind of gets my brain juices flowing again. And then I can go, okay, great. That was the break I needed. Go and sit back down and have another crack at it. Okay, so when somebody wants to dive into tea head first for an extensive education about tea, what books, courses, or experiences do you recommend?
Head first.
Well, I mean, feet first is also okay.
I mean, like
they want to immerse themselves in everything.
Well, if you're ready to invest a lot of your time, and actually also money and energy, I think the best thing I've saw so far is the internship at Obubu. I know it's an easy answer, but I think if it's easy to answer that, it means it's the correct answer. It's 3 months of intensive knowledge about tea, because it's intensive because you're living on a tea farm, so you have no other choice but to always talk about tea. I feel like if you do not like tea enough, you may not be super happy as an intern at Obubu, because everybody's always drinking tea, talking about tea. Everything is about tea. Even when you go in Wazuka, you will see tea farmers everywhere, teas everywhere. So I think the head first, it would be that, especially when you don't know much about tea, because it's such a friendly place for people who don't know about it. Well, if you can't, I don't think you can just go to any type of tea garden in the world if you don't know tea and just learn from that, because you'll be considered as a novice everywhere you'll go, and people will not necessarily take you seriously. There's that, and then in France, if you have the possibility to work in a tea shop that offers training, it's a good thing as well. There are the independent tea shops that offer training. I think you'll get a lot of information about more the drinking part, and maybe a little bit how the teas are processed, rather than the actual farming and cultural aspect of tea. But it's very good, and I worked in a tea shop that would do that, and that had so many teas from all around the world that I could just explore and experience. And I think it works very well. Yeah.
Excellent advice. Very sound advice, Sean.
I am a bookworm, but when it comes to tea, I don't read a lot about tea.
How do you get your tea knowledge then?
People. I have a very good memory when it comes to what people tell me, like conversations with people. I remember what they said. So I think honestly I got all of my knowledge from one person. I'm not it's true. It's true. Everything comes from George Godrich Smith. And when I was an intern, I was asking a lot of more and more questions, and I had such amazing tips and tricks about tea, and that sometimes here, I say to interns, and they're like, or even as the managers, and they're like, oh, Sean, you know so much about tea. And I can't help but say,
You do.
I mean, I can't help but say, oh, that trick, that like, just what I just said comes directly from George to me to you. Like, and it feels like I'm passing down what I learned from you, I think.
Well, I mean, I can only say the same though, right? Because I learned this from somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. But I think there are a lot of things that you are teaching from your own experience, and I do too as well. But I think it started with that, and then because of this, I started to ask questions to other people in tea, and I usually trust this more, and I ask more questions about the people personal relationship to tea, rather than, oh, do you know how black tea is supposed to work? I mean, I have read tea books, and I have learned things from tea books, but I always try to learn the very basic things, because when it gets very complicated, then there's a lot of the more I know about tea, the more I read about tea, I'm like, yes, this is true, but also not everywhere, not all the time, and there's more nuances to this. So I always feel a little bit like I'm not reading lies, but by reading books like this, there's a rigid and strict image of tea that builds up into my mind, and I don't like that, because I find that it's not the truth. And here, as a manager, being able to process my own tea, being able to harvest my own tea, and selling the tea as well, and doing basically everything, has built most of my knowledge today. Like, I think most of what I know come from this, and my experience in Nepal, where I also processed the tea a lot, and where I was working in the tea field, hand plucking the teas, and processing, and then asking questions as well. I think it's on the field. I think where I learned the most is in the tea field and in the factories. But it started with a lot of advices from you, I think, especially when it comes to brewing and tasting, I think. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Well, I think there's not much that can replace actually being in a situation where you're going to be doing something with tea. Like, there's the theoretical side where you can read about it or hear about it, but when you're wanting a hands-on experience, like, you have a real connection with what's happening at that point in time of the tea production or brewing or something like that, and that is hard to replace. If you have a teacher at the same time helping you understand whilst you're having that experience, it's really valuable.
Yeah. So I definitely had a lot of knowledge also passed on by Hiro-san, who's been my teacher at Obubu. So every time I was processing tea, I could always ask questions. And then Hiro-san was more taking care of my training, so I got a lot of information. But then I also got small, very, very good tips from Aki-san by going in the evening with Aki-san and asking questions, or asking Aki, like, what do you think, like, tomorrow, Aki, tomorrow I'm supposed to process tea and I'll be a little bit more alone. Like, do you have, like, what do you think I should be careful of? And everybody, especially people who process tea, they all have a different way of doing it, and they all have different tips and tricks that all work. And I just have to build my own and make mistakes and being like, oh, this tea is too dry. Why? Because I did this wrong, or I could have done this better. And the why is usually always comes from Hiro-san giving me advices and explaining to me what I did that was not good, or what I did also, and very often what I did that was good. So Hiro-san is also very good at telling from the finished product what was done. So he would look at the leaves and say, oh, you did this and this well, or oh, you did this and this. No, I'm not as good, but it's great to know all of that, to be able to have access to this. And I think Hiro-san is a great manager when it comes to processing factory because of the amount of knowledge he has. Yeah.
He ran a tencha factory for a while. Did you know that?
For how long?
A few years.
Okay.
Him and Aki, they ran it together way before.
Okay, I didn't know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But I think one point you said about how when you're reading a book, like it can feel like the writer is trying to say this is like the absolute facts of whatever they're talking about. I think one way in which I got around that, and because I experienced Nepal first, India and Nepal, and then I came to Japan, I found that the ways of doing things over there were very different to over here in terms of, what are their standards for particular processes during production. I began to formulate a way of, or began to formulate sounds a bit fancy, but basically I changed my way of thinking about knowledge, where I categorize the knowledge I get from people based on where they are in the supply chain, but also where they are geographically. Because each area has its own cultural spin on everything, including tea production. And on top of that, depending on which part of the supply chain they're in, they have a different viewpoint. So their information changes as well. So I try and look at it from those perspectives so that when I hear something from someone which really contradicts what I know, I try and place it in the correct part of the supply chain or part of the world to help appreciate how they're looking at tea as a product or whatever they're specifically talking about at that time. And so it's not necessarily right or wrong, but I can then go and fact check it later to see how does that compare to different areas, different people in the tea industry, and try and build a more holistic view of tea in that respect. But yeah, there's a lot of grey.
Yeah, it's true. I think also there are different expectations when it comes to tea in the different places. So like in Japan, there's like, oh, tea should be like this and like that. It should look like this and like that. There's a specific aroma and taste that is aimed towards, and therefore the rules are easier to follow because they're more strict. They're more, because we want this, we do this. In Nepal, and this is one of my other very important and amazing teacher, Apsara, who is a tea maker she is a tea maker in Nepal, right? In the tea factory Kalapani. And she is not about it should taste a certain way. She's more about I want to make this tea taste the way I want to make it taste like. And she goes to that. And she was really good at teaching me how you can make the tea taste more fruity, more like strong aromas, etc. She is an artist she's more an artist than a person who follows the rules. She follows her own rules and she makes amazing tea. And I think I learned different things there than I learned here in Japan. So I totally understand what you're saying when you're saying like, depends on, you categorize the knowledge where it is and from who said it and what context. And yeah, I totally understand that.
This makes it really difficult as somebody who's entering the tea industry or would like to know more about the tea industry, because you often find a lot of conflicting information.
Yes.
And that's really confusing.
But even later, when you get to know tea a lot, you get like different informations.
So finding like reliable sources of information is really tricky.
I think the best source of information that you can find on a book about tea is when the author says, this farmer in this place said that and does his tea this way, rather than saying in China they do this. I think I really trust when you know that the author has met a tea farmer and is reporting what the tea farmer has said. But most of the time, the author puts their own opinion through the message, and they also implement their own view of the things. So, because it's very often biased, but when they say something like the tea farmer said this and the tea farmer does that, very factual, and that's what happened, then it's very interesting. But this is very rare. You can't find it very easily. And that is one of the reasons why I like the AT magazine, because it's a lot of interviews from people. So that's really good. Yeah.
So actually what I want to try and do with this is
Okay.
you'll be able to sit down and talk to people and you'll be able to like hear it directly from the people that are involved with that, product, and they're able to like communicate exactly how they are thinking about this. And I think that's a really interesting part of the process as well.
What's difficult with tea also is that there are different aspects of tea. You can know a lot about the drink, you can know a lot about the leaves, you can know a lot about the cultivation, you can know a lot about the history, you can know. And I think every tea expert, I don't know how to say that, people who have been in the tea for a long time, they always have a weakness in tea knowledge, something they don't know very well as much.
And you would hope that people are honest about that, right? If they don't know much about a particular topic, you would hope that they say, actually, I'm not, an expert on this area. And they have the confidence to do that. But it's not.
Don't you think a lot of people are not?
It's difficult because I forget the exact way that this is phrased or the exact name for this, but there is a very well-known name out there. But when you start learning something, you first feel like you know nothing. Very quickly, you begin to feel like, oh yeah, I've got it. And you become an expert. But then the more you learn about it, you then actually realize you know nothing. And then it becomes a journey of like trying to fill in all the gaps along the way. And so depending on which part of the journey people are in, maybe they feel that way about tea in general. Maybe they feel it about a specific part of tea. But everybody's always learning more. And so depending on what part of the journey you find somebody, they come with a different feeling. Like somebody might leave the internship that we have here and be very confident in the fact they know everything there is to know about Japanese tea. Whereas you go and talk to our president at Obubu, Aki-san, and or any of the other tea farmers around Wazuka, and they'll be like, yeah, I know nothing. I don't know much about tea. Like I'm not a novice, but like I'm always learning more.
Yeah.
And so you get a very different perspective from those people because they are the experts, and yet they feel themselves that they don't know that much.
But it's because you know how much you don't know. But
right?
Yeah. Oh.
But there is a word for this. I forget.
I don't know.
So it really depends on the people you find.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I can't say every time, but some books you read are written by people who have done some research and then written a book, and then those ones are the dangerous ones to go for because they haven't had the long history with tea and dived into all these different areas.
Yeah. I think personally I can say that I can talk about topics, like I can talk about tea brewing, but I don't know tea brewing because it's so difficult. And right. But there are topics that I know I can't even talk about tea, and I'm really bad at tea history. Like if you ask me anything, I'll be like, I don't know, or I know like very general things, very like basic things like tea in China is first believed to have been drunk as a medicine rather than like very very like general things, but I don't know when, I don't know by who, I don't know how, I forget all the names. It's very bad. Yeah.
What about Japan? Do you know
it's the same.
Really?
Yeah, I forget everything.
Yeah.
I go into one of the amazing education for assistant manager that we have now called AME, where it's a full hour course, and I take a lot of notes, and we have one about history, and I took a lot of notes, and I have this information on paper, but in my head, it's just not going in. And it's not staying there. Yeah. I think it's just that I don't actually really care. Like, I'm like, okay, there's this guy who invented sencha. Okay, fine.
It's not your
I'm like, what? Yeah, no. I'm like, okay. Thank you to this guy. I respect him. But I forget his name all the time. It's terrible. Sure. It's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible.
So,
yeah. I feel
like I tell you so.
Yeah. But if you tell me, I'll be like, oh yeah, this guy.
Of course, that guy, yeah.
But
You'd be able to
No.
pick him out of a lineup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's it. I can't give it this. It's really bad because we talk about this all the time, and here at Obubu, a lot of people are very, very passionate about history. So I feel bad because I can't even spell out Nagatani properly. Because I'm like, yeah, there's this guy who is believed to have invented sencha.
But I wouldn't worry too much, because there are so many. This is one of the beautiful things about tea. There are so many different ways to enjoy tea, and history maybe not your thing.
But even from school, like history as a topic outside of tea has been always the worst. So for me, I don't relate, I think, to things that happened a very long time ago. I'm thankful for many of the things that happen, and I'm scared about a lot of things that happen as well. And I'm interested when we talk about it, but I don't remember.
That's fine. You have plenty that everybody has different focuses, right? There's, I'm sure, a whole lot of stuff like so much about the agricultural side, which is much more than me, because you come from an agricultural background from your studies.
But it's more interesting to me as well.
I find it interesting too, but like the amount of knowledge you have about that way surpasses anything that I know. So
honestly, I know actually more about wine and viticulture than tea cultivation.
Well, because of your studies, right?
Yeah, because I studied it like very closely, and I know I can find truthful. Thank you. I can't pronounce it. But anyway, like real resources about viticulture.
Yeah. And
if I have a question about viticulture, I know where to find the answer. And I know more about viticulture than I know about tea cultivation. Yeah. Tea cultivation is always the answer is always depends. So
right. Which in itself is really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with processing. When you have questions, it's like, depends.
Well, a lot of the time that happens when you're talking with Aki. Like he stops and he really has to think for a minute about how to answer your question, because the question you've asked is not as simple as you might think it is. Yeah. It depends on 3 other variables that have happened earlier that day. If any one of those were different, then the answer he gives you then is very, very different. So he has to really think about, okay, based on this current situation, what is the answer that I should give John? So there's so many like gray areas and different variables to play around with. It's one of the really interesting things about tea, and something that is always helping us produce different teas and enjoy teas in different ways. So yeah, tea is magic. That's for sure.
Yes.
Okay. Well, before we jump on to another tea, let me ask you a couple of questions, and they're a little bit easier ones. The first questions I've asked you are more general questions, but I'm going to whittle those down into a few smaller, shorter questions for other people. So
you always say that, and then
I appreciate you for being the first person that I do this with. This is
so you can anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very kind of you. So, what are your 3 favorite Japanese tea cultivars?
Japanese tea
cultivars.
Okay. I don't know that many because we are not using so many at Obubu, and they're the ones that I know the most.
Okay, well then let's just do tea cultivars in general. It doesn't have to be Japanese tea.
I can go with Japanese tea and then go with other cultivars I like. Yeah. But for sure, even like out of all of the cultivars, I feel like Okumidori is a really good cultivar. It's my favorite matcha so far. And it's just, even for sencha, it's feels like in the taste of it, it's very flexible. You can make a lot of things. It always tastes very good. And when it comes to other cultivars, I like Samidori as well. I think in the taste, the punch it has, the strong aromas it has. It's very delicious. And then the third one is Yabukita.
Okay.
Because I feel like the reason why I wouldn't tend to say that it's Yabukita is because almost all of the teas are Yabukita, so it's not a very rare cultivars. But you have to say that all of the teas, when you're being served Yabukita, taste great. And it's more a matter of, it's because 70% of all the senchas are Yabukita, so I would rather drink something else because I'm used to drinking Yabukita rather than because I don't like the cultivar. I can also see in the tea fields that it is quite a resistant cultivars because we have cultivars a little bit more
weak.
Yeah. Okumidori is one of them. It's a little bit more weak. The stronger cultivar than Yabukita is being Saya Makaori is very strong, but it doesn't taste as good, in my opinion. So yeah, I would go with Yabukita, Okumidori, and Samidori, I think. And that's also because we have two matchas, Samidori matcha and Okumidori matcha. And matcha is my favorite Japanese tea. So maybe that influences my choice. Yeah.
I was thinking, when you said first Okumidori, then Samidori, I was waiting for you to say Koko.
No.
Which is
I really like Goko. Goko is very good, especially for Gyokuro.
Yeah.
But I don't like Gyokuro as much as I like matcha, and I like the Goko matcha. But I feel like every time I drink one of our Yabukita Spring Sun, or even Kabusu Sencha's Yabukita, I love it. So yeah,
it's a good tea.
It is.
It is a good tea. I mean, it's a standard tea of Japan for a reason, right?
Yeah.
A standard.
I think so. I think there's a reason. There's a cultivation reason, but also a taste reason. I think when it comes to other cultivars in Japan, I also really like. But actually, I'm a very basic person because I really like AV2, which is a very important cultivar in Darjeeling, Nepal, and even China. But it's very floral. It's very tasty. It's delicious. And it's usually blended with other cultivars in Darjeeling and Nepal. But it gives to the tea this rose, floral taste that I really like.
AV2.
AV2, yes, AV2. It's a very common cultivar. And my favorite tea is the Silver Needle from Fujian, right, in China. And they use a specific cultivar that has huge buds. And I'm not saying that I know this cultivar because the only tea I drink from this cultivar is the Silver Needle. But because it's my favorite tea, I guess I can also say that cultivar is great, but I don't remember the name. So, I feel a little bit like, should I really say that if I don't even know how it's called? But it's usually, this cultivar is usually used only for that specific tea.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I hope to find out what it is one day. I have my fingers crossed.
I think the name is very close to Fujian. It's because it's from there.
It's a Fujianese cultivar. Okay, well, while you have a little Google, I will ask you another question as well. And this one's quite a well, I think it's quite an easy one for you because you've spoken a little bit about it earlier. Do you have a favorite piece of teaware to brew with?
Specific piece of teaware, there's the teapot I already talked about that I love.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not very flexible. It's not a very flexible teapot. I can't brew anything in it. So as much as I love it, I don't think I'll pick that one for this question.
Okay.
Because yes, I love it, but yeah, it's not. I don't want to brew green tea in there. And I'm gonna say I have very strong unpopular opinion when it comes to teaware. I think you know. I think you know.
A hot take.
Oh no. I like brewing tea in glass.
But that's fine.
or pictures or
Yeah.
like why is because even though I know that the temperature is very difficult to control with the glass teaware, you can brew anything in it. It won't be impacted by the previous teas you've brewed in. So it feels like you're tasting the tea a bit more raw, like natural, kind of like normal taste. But also I love watching the leaves when brewing. It's my favorite. I think to me, drinking tea is not only about drinking the liquor. It's also about looking at the water, the brewing, and even I like the steam that the hot water makes, etc. I think it's very pretty. And watching the leaves open is one of my favorite things. And when you use a glass picture, it's beautiful because the glass usually also zooms on the leaves, so you can see them a little bit better as well. I really like it. And then you can also see the water gets colored with the tea as well. So at home I had, because glass has many problems. It's very fragile. I had a filter into a teapot, and the filter was in glass, and the teapot was in glass. And so I could see the water turn in color and the leaves open in the glass filter. Very pretty. And because it was quite a big teapot, I was able to control temperature, because when you add lots of hot water, the temperature tends to drop not as fast. But it has a lot of problems. It breaks all the time. It doesn't keep the tea warm at all. So when you brew black tea, you will definitely brew the black tea at a lower temperature than you should, because it's a glass pitcher. But I don't mind brewing teas at lower temperatures, so it's okay. Yeah, I think any kind of glass pitcher is really good for me. I like it. But everybody would be like, especially tea lovers, they'll be like, what?
But I don't know, because if you brew with glass or a glazed ceramic, you're able to taste the tea. Like, it's better for evaluation, right? So you're better able to judge the tea. So
for evaluation, I would rather use porcelain in that case to keep the warmth.
Yeah,
a little bit more.
I guess you can see the color more clearly against the white.
And usually for evaluation, you don't really look at the leaves open. You look at the leaves once they're open, once they're brewed, before the brewing, and you look at the liquor. So you don't need to look at the leaves brewing. And also for evaluation, you put a timer, specific timer. So you won't use porcelain. You would use porcelain, sorry. Yeah. But yeah.
No, but if I really want to get into a tea and like have a look at it clearly as it's brewing, not for like a standardized evaluation, I have a little tiny glass teapot.
Yeah, right. It's really nice. Yeah.
Very good point, Joel. Well, no, there's an excellent answer. Now I've got a difficult question for you.
Oh.
This is a tough one.
Okay.
If you had to sum up the French, Nepalese, and Japanese tea scenes in a few sentences each, what would you say? You can tackle each one individually.
Let's start with France.
Okay, let's start with France, yes.
France, tea culture is not about the tea. It's about the people.
Okay.
And the things around the tea. The cake, the teapots, it looks pretty. And France has more perfumes approach for a lot of things. But for tea, if it doesn't smell and taste like perfume, then it's not good enough. And I think that's why jasmine teas and Earl Greys are very popular in France. And I think that's why also we drink tea during the afternoon 4 p.m. Break called goûter. And it's a very familial thing as well, French trend thing as well. And usually tea is more about the other things you eat with it and the other people you drink it with, I think. And there's not as much focus on the quality of the tea.
More about the perfume, the people around.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, no, I don't want to deep dive at this point. Okay, so Japanese or Nepalese?
But that's what I think. I'm not saying that's what it is.
Well,
I don't know. I
there's-
don't know every tea drinkers in
Oh, of
France,
course,
of course, but
generally speaking.
Mm.
Okay.
okay. In Nepal, in Nepal, I think there are two different worlds in Nepal as well, because there's a place where they do a lot of cut tier crush tea, where they will sell it as more of a product to make chai, or to sell it to big wholesalers. And then there's the other side that is a little bit more specialty tea, that is supposed to be drank not with milk, not with anything, just the way it is. So I don't actually really know very much the crush tier curl culture that is produced mostly in the Terai, so the flat part of like Nepal. I don't know what's the culture, the people relationship to tea there. And I'm not saying I know the mountain part, but I've witnessed it, so I can talk about it more. And there is a very strong, especially for tea farmers, a pride in and love for making tea. It's not only about drinking tea, it's also about, for the communities in the mountains, about having their tea fields, having tea fields that look pretty and good, and selling good quality fresh leaves where I was, because it was almost tea farmers almost everywhere. And I think even for the tea, there's a proudness of like serving really good tea to people. And then there's also the chai culture in Nepal that is very strong, and there's chai everywhere. You can order chai everywhere. I think in Nepal they drink tea a little bit more like French people would drink coffee, very strong, and as an energy drink, rather than because it tastes good. But the thing is, I'm very much biased because I lived in a tea factory where the tea needed to taste good. But when I was going to restaurants or in the towns or in the cities, they were drinking tea because it's so strongly input into the culture there that tea is everywhere. And it's also a very, like, if you have guests, you serve them tea. And it's not like as much like that in France. In Nepal, I think there's a lot of prideness, and it's very deeply rooted in the culture, I think. And it's at almost every stage, every social classes in Nepal. While in France, it's more the wealthy people, the rich people who will serve tea and alcohol, I think. I don't know, it's a difficult question.
It's interesting though. It's interesting to think about. I can't help but think about those things in connection to the UK culture as well. Where everybody brews tea. It's not a like higher class thing. It's everyone in British society would brew a cup of tea. Like happy, brew some tea. Sad, brew some tea. Celebration, let's have a cup of tea. Maybe a biscuit. Oh. But there's things like that. It's just a bit different. So
I mean, in France, everybody can have Lipton tea.
Yeah.
So I'm not really. There's a lot of there's a big individual, how do you call that, tea bags culture in France. I think the tea bag culture in France is very strong.
Okay, well, it's the same.
At every level, but loose leaf tea, it's only like high social classes, like rich social classes that in France would do.
Well, that's actually one of the things that shocked me a little bit when I got to know a bit more about French tea culture as I got older, is that actually French people drink a lot better tea than the British. So
better tea?
Much better. Almost everybody in the UK, regardless of class, will think of tea as tea bag tea. And they'll brew a nice tea bag tea. And they'll buy their nice tea bag tea, if they're a bit more posh, from the more expensive, well-known places.
Mm.
Whittards of Chelsea, maybe Twinings, Harrogates. But there are this bog standard tea brands that everybody would buy. PG Tips, Yorkshire tea, like everyone has their favourite. So when it comes to loose leaf tea, you don't really get that so much. Like if you find somebody who has loose leaf tea in their house, it's either they are from the 1800s and partly fossilized, or they are someone who's interested in tea, a little bit like we are, who would be more likely to have loose leaf tea in their house. So you don't really find that in the UK, obviously.
It's in France. We actually have still a strong, especially in the higher, I was like wealthy people. There are two brands that kind of dominate the fancy posh, like not posh, but fancy and high quality, high grade loose leaf and tea bags that are called Mariage Frère and Dame Frère, and they sell a lot of loose leaf. And there are a lot of places in France where the loose leaf tea, but most importantly, they sell tea bags where it's not crushed charcoal inside. It looks a little bit more powdery because the tea bag doesn't protect the leaves as much. But they sell whole leaf tea in tea bags, and the quality of the tea bags is extremely good. And it's not plastic, it's not paper, it's a very high quality tea bag. For instance, Palais d'été, those cotton tea bags. It's only cotton. I don't like it, but yeah, I don't like it. I feel like drinking cotton. It's weird. But it's really good. I personally don't like it, but I think it's really good because it really protects the leaves, and it gives a lot of space for the leaves to open in the bag. Well, anyway. But I don't know about the UK. If you can find like whole leaf tea in a tea bag.
You can, yeah, very easily. Like you go into some of the higher end supermarkets. If you go to Waitrose, for example, they stock Rare Tea Company. I don't know if you've heard of that. With a lady called Henrietta runs this Rare Tea Company, and they source good quality loose leaf tea, and you can buy it's all in tins, and you can buy silver needle tea if you want, and also all sorts of tea from all over the world, and it's called the Rare Tea Company, but it's quite expensive. Or you can buy something a little bit more mid-market in the tea world, which is tea pigs. I don't know if you've heard of tea pigs.
Pigs?
Yeah, tea pigs, and they have the pyramid shape sachet or tea bags, which have loose leaf tea in, and then you just brew with that. So that's something kind of in between the loose leaf and the standard tea bags you would get, and it's something that is quite accessible. But on the whole, people don't normally start off with that. They normally start off with CTC tea.
Yes, because that's what you find in the supermarkets as well. The only whole leaf tea you can find in the supermarket in France is gunpowder. That is a tea that is kind of meant to be mixed with something else.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike it, but it's just very. It's not, when you think about very high grade whole leaf tea, you don't think about gunpowder. But in the supermarket, it's the highest grade you can find. Otherwise, it's only CTC.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I think it's better in the UK. I think you have more options in the supermarkets.
I think so, but I just don't think we have the culture. The French have always had the culture edge on the UK, I think.
About what? About
just generally.
A
lot of the fancy stuff we have comes from French culture.
We like fancy things.
I'm not
fancy looking.
I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think it's great. But I think it comes back from we had William the Conqueror come in, right? And all the ruling class of the UK changed, or England changed, and they kept all the fancy French stuff. I think it's quite nice. We've been able to have a wonderful blend of cultures. Unfortunately, you do have better tea than us, I think, on the whole. Like, we don't typically have like mariage frère.
But they sell a lot of CTC as well, as being the best tea out there. Like, they sell it as being like, this is really high grade tea, which is not necessarily not high grade, but it's still CTC, so it's gonna taste very strongly. You're gonna have to add things with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a fancy.
Well, I know. I'm just thinking back because when I did my tea tasting course in Darjeeling, we tasted predominantly CTC tea.
Yeah.
And it was differentiated with either CTC or Orthodox. Those are the two ways to talk about tea. And Orthodox had such a huge variety in it because, it's like an artisan tea.
Yeah.
It's hard to categorize it. But CTC has very strict rules. And so when we're drinking our CTC tea, it was quite easy to be tasting it and then see the differences in everything. And so I tasted some really delicious CTC teas and also some really terrible CTC teas. So finding what is good for you, I think, is another important thing.
Yeah.
And we don't typically drink CTC tea. It's not my favorite tea, but I would say if you go to the factory that produces it and they have a nice raw material, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's going to do a nice tea.
Yeah. But it's just
even
a
if
very
it's
different
CTC.
method of production.
Yeah. I think it's just there's a lot of tea company who brings this forward as being the only way. Like, like this is the good way. This is the high quality.
Nah, and that I find difficult sometimes because, I don't think anyone can say that because there's so many different ways to produce tea, so many different tea cultures out there. If anybody says to you, this is the best, I'm always a bit skeptical. I'm always a bit unsure. Oh, really?
Yeah.
According to who? According to what? Like, do you have an award? Yes.
For Japan, I don't know how to resume because I feel like it's such a big country. In Nepal, they produce most of the teas either in Terai or in Ilam. So because it's quite located around Ilam, there are other places, but it's where they produce most of it. Yeah. You can kind of say, where in Ilam and in Terai, where they do the crushed charcoal, that's where we can resume the tea. But in Japan,
well, there's so many. Japan's an interesting case, I think, because there's so many different cultures depending on the prefecture you're in. So you add that together with the long, long history of tea, there's naturally going to be very different tea cultures in different places.
Because if we take the example of Kansai, everything is tea flavored. If you go in a supermarket, you get like everything matcha or hojicha or again matcha. I'm a little bit exaggerating here, but
yes.
when you go to Kyoto, like you get whole tea places that serves everything matcha. Even when you go into a souvenir shop, you will find a lot of sweets with matcha and with tea in it, and teas everywhere. I find, especially in Kyoto, around Kyoto, and Nara, and Uji, but that's because I live here, so I see it a lot.
That's true.
Uji is just tea everywhere, but
you get tea ramen in Uji.
You get tea ramen, everything's tea flavored.
Yeah.
So here it's more the cooking with tea that I think is huge, and other products around tea, that is huge. I don't know if it's the same elsewhere. And also here we have more lightly steamed tea, like whole leaf needle shape. But in another place in Japan, it will be strongly steamed and not needle shaped, or pan fried, or pan fired. Sorry, not fried, pan fired. So
it's tricky.
Yeah.
But I would say on the whole, Japan is a more green tea country.
Oh yes, of course. I think I should start with the basic things. Yeah, definitely. And steaming.
Yeah, steaming.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's very honestly, to me, the teas in Japan, they always taste fishy and
Which is
seaweedy.
mind blowing to me because I just don't get them at all.
It's the steaming. It does that seaweedy fishy thing.
I think it's more vegetal. I don't see it as like a seaweed thing. But I will say, I will caveat that by saying, when I first came to Japan, I hated seaweed. And I never felt like I tasted, definitely some teas have like a seaweediness to them. But most of the teas I tasted, green teas, I had never had that thought. It was never like, oh, that tastes like seaweed to me. All of them taste like seaweed. So I'm interested to know, like, why?
I mean, not all of them, but when I drink Japanese green tea, especially steamed green tea, especially kabuse sencha, everything is umami and grassy, and it's true, it's very grassy and vegetal. I taste the ocean every time. So it's either seaweed or crab or fish or
Even an unshaded, like spring sun.
Yes.
Center of the spring sun, unshaded Yabakita.
yes.
Center of the earth.
It's not the
unshaded.
main. It's not the body of the tea. It's not the main aromas, because the spring sun, for instance, that we have is actually a little bit slightly floral.
Yeah.
And it's mostly grassy floral, but it has this kind of like white fish flesh flavor that you cook in the oven. Like, it's very specific, I know, but to me it has it.
What temperature? How long?
Well, actually high temperature, because the skin needs to grill.
So,
and it's always been like that. And actually, in France, it's very common when you tell in the tea companies in Paladin, they will tell you, "Oh, this kabuse sencha has marine notes and fish notes and things like that."
Well, I'm familiar with that when tasting cooked puer from China. And I would often smell it, and the shopua, and it has this like funky, fishy smell.
But it's more funky, as in like fermented, rather than.
But some of them are like straight up fish.
Oh, okay.
And it's really unpleasant.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't want it in my tea. I don't enjoy that. And even, many times it's just a wash. You got to wash it. Maybe it's the storage was a bit weird, but even then, like, I'm not a fan.
Okay.
So I think that's really interesting to hear, because I found that more in Europe compared to in Japan. So I think it's really interesting. But what about when you're drinking teas from here in France? How do you feel about those? Is it like more fishy?
Oh, that's a good question. I always think it's more umami.
In France?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I always think it's not only it's not more umami, but it's also a little bit more, maybe a little bit more fishy. I think because the water is harder, stronger, it extracts maybe too much. And when I brewed kabuse sencha, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to say as well, fishy doesn't necessarily mean bad.
No. Well, for me, it's a good thing.
Yeah. There was one tea that I had here as an intern, kabuse sencha as well, actually, which I took it, the same packet, open packet, took it to the UK, and I brewed it for my family, and it tasted like tuna steak. delicious tuna steak. But I didn't want a tuna steak in my tea. Yeah. So it was a weird feeling to be drinking this going, wow, that's really great. I wish I was eating tuna steak and not drinking a green tea. But it was just a weird feeling. So I find it easier to not have those flavors when in Japan.
But you've never had a whole fish put in the oven, cooked like that, and then you just open it and it's a white flesh, and it's very subtle. It doesn't have a strong taste, right? Yeah, you had. I believe you did. So I'm very surprised because it really tastes the same. And crab.
No, see, when you said that, I was like, really? But then, but to be honest, maybe now I think about it, I'm not the biggest. Or before coming to Japan, I didn't really eat that much seafood.
So you're not a fan?
Not that I'm not a fan of seafood. Like I really enjoy eating fish. Crab is delicious. Like many other, most seafoods I'm a big fan of. But when I'm drinking tea, I'm not thinking about that. But maybe it's because I didn't have it so much growing up.
I don't know.
It's a mystery.
Mystery. Or I'm crazy. And
I don't think so. I mean, I'd like to say yes, but honestly, I don't think so. Okay, anyway. Thank you very much for that, those summaries. Okay, so
Summary.
I have a whole host of questions. So we're going to do, if we can do some quick fire questions, and then I've got 2 longer questions I want to ask.
Okay.
What are your favorite parts about the tea community as a whole?
The tea community as a whole. I feel like we always have a way to connect. And that's tea, obviously. And it's very easy because you make friends so fast that way. And I wouldn't say that the tea community is always super welcoming with everybody, because we're still humans and we're still sometimes bad people as well, and sometimes good people. And I think believing in the fact that, tea people are always nice, well, it's not true. We're people. But you will always have a common ground, and that's great, I think. And that allows people to connect very, very easily, in good, obviously. So even when you are having a conversation with somebody that your personality doesn't necessarily match, you still love, both of you still love tea, and there's still a way for like agreeing on something. And I think that's great. Most of the time, tea people like each other because of this reason. And so the tea community feels like a safe space, I think. So that's a good thing. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not like this.
Always.
Yeah. But it still has the safe space. So I think.
So
I'm such a negative person.
It has the safe space, but be careful.
But be careful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has a safe space, but be careful. As in, like, don't lose yourself into whatever tea field in the middle of nowhere just because you think everybody who drinks tea is a good person. It's not the case. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think that in general, there's always something you can connect around with, and that's tea, and it's great. That's what I like about tea community. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I shouldn't struggle on that one. That one should be easy, and that was like
Okay, well, I've got another difficult one for you.
Okay.
What is the most memorable tea moment you've ever had?
I think we talked about this last time, and it's very strange because I have had many, but I went in my journey to tea from the normal tea is flavored to tea flavored is bad to tea flavored is not always bad. Most of the often is bad, but tea flavor with flavors can also be very much imprinted in cultures, people cultures, like jasmine tea or like genmaicha. Genmaicha is a flavored tea when you think about it, kind of. To actually flavored tea is great, and I love it as much as I love, not as much as I love plain tea, but it's still really good. And that happened when, and we already talked about it, when I tried a flavored tea that reminded me of my childhood memory, and I was like, oh, that's the power of flavors and of perfumes, basically. And it's great, and it's still tea, and I feel like I'm drinking tea. So I think that time when I started realizing that flavored tea is actually really, really good is very memorable to me, because it has been such a strong switch in my passion for tea. And that happened with Daman Frère. They do their own flavors, so they don't ask it's another party to do flavoring for them. So they do their own and they test a lot of them, and they're always trying to say something through the recipe they are making. And I think it's great and it's beautiful. And I love it.
Well, that's great.
And it's very memorable.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful memory, Joel.
Thank you.
Sorry.
For telling me.
No. I have another question. I have other questions
really
for
like
you.
Okay, please.
Okay. What have you learned from working in the Japanese tea industry over the last year?
What have I learned? Many things.
I'm glad. I was about to ask you, have you learned anything over the last year?
What would be interesting to talk about? I don't know.
It doesn't have to necessarily be something that you think might be super interesting. You can... Anything's okay.
What did I learn? What did I learn? I guess dedication will always result in something brilliant.
Dedication.
Putting a lot of energy, a lot of love, a lot of yourself into something will always result in positive things and good things. Even when you are going for it too much, as in like when you are dedicating yourself too much, you're sacrificing a bit of yourself, there will be negative things that will come out of this, like being immersed and drowning yourself in something is not always good, but it will not only be bad. There is a result. And I've seen Japanese people being so dedicated around here that I'm like, wow, like this is a little bit crazy, but the result is amazing and beautiful, I think. This is very philosophical approach of it. And it's also like, don't put your hand in the processing machine the way you want, whatever. That's also something I learned. Please be careful. That I learned.
Please be careful.
Machine and dangerous. So there are many different things that I learned. Wear gloves. That I also learned. Because I don't know. Even wood can be dangerous. You can get a shard in your finger.
It's true. Safety. Would you say safety first, or safety second, or safety third?
In life, or
just
in life, second. Because if you first think about safety, you're going to be very stressed. In your life. But I don't think any professional should say that. I think professionally I should say, of course, safety first. But in life, I feel like if you always only cared about safety, you're not going to do a lot with your life.
That's true.
First think about, how can I have fun? How can I enjoy this? And then think about, and also, how can I do it safely? Rather than being like, how can I do this safely? And then after, okay, now how can I enjoy it? It's this way around. It's not as good, I think. So second,
definitely not as fun.
Yeah, and to me that's the best. Honestly, I know I'm gonna say something maybe that will sound depressing to many people, but I would rather die very soon because I wasn't safe enough or get hurt. Because I wasn't safe enough, but not really worrying about it too much and being happy and not being my entire life stressed. So I would rather die soon rather than dying at 100 years old, but living my entire life being like scared about everything, not doing everything the way I want to because, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? I think it's very important to, die young, happy your whole life rather than die old and happy, anxious your whole life.
Ideally, die old and happy.
That's the best. That's the best thing. But you can't do that if you're very, very scared about your safety.
It's very true.
It's not going to happen.
No.
Well, don't be stupid and don't do like stupid things. But when there's a big risk, maybe you should be safe more. But I agree with the fact that there's a very, very small probability that this will happen badly. But something bad will happen nonetheless. So
What's the point in worrying?
yeah, what was the point in staying in bed because you're scared? Stay in bed because you want to stay in bed, not because you're scared.
Yes, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another couple of questions for you. I've got another tea on that's brewing at the moment. So this is a 2011 raw pour from tea bushes that are about 100 years old. Older than that, actually, but can't remember exactly how old. So this is a very interesting tea. And we won't get to drink too much of it, but it's quite tasty. It has a really nice aroma. I've brewed it for you many times in the office at Obubu already, so it should be relatively familiar, but I will just leave that to infuse for a little while before pouring for you. So I have two questions remaining, and these are not specifically tea questions to say, but there's a couple of interesting ones, maybe 3 questions. Let's start with a tea. No, let's not do that.
Please take your time.
Okay. Focus on quick fire questions.
No. I can do that. You know that.
If you were to recommend 3 business people or organizations for tea-orientated people to investigate, what would you recommend?
If I were to recommend somebody, I would recommend you, I think.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Because you know a lot about every tea. Like not like every tea, but like you know a lot about a lot of different teas. You're very specialist in Japanese tea, but you also know a lot about other teas. And you have a very open-minded vision on tea. And you are very, very nice to talk with as well. So I feel like if somebody wants to know about tea, they'll know about tea and they'll have a nice conversation with you. The only thing is, I'll be worried about you because you are a very busy man. And if you start hearing that I sent you a lot of people to like have a chat, you'll be like, please stop doing this. I have other things to do. So I would first ask for your consent. Can I give the content?
Please don't.
Can I give
you
your
have
content?
my forever consent for that.
Okay.
But please also know that I'm excited for you to get back to France because I'll be sending people your way who are interested in tea and based in France.
Okay, please do so I can say, oh, actually, you should ask George.
Okay, we'll do a favor for each other.
And then I would say that in France, if you want to know more about tea, please enter a Palais de Thé shop and ask questions. Because even if they do not necessarily have people there that have been trained for a long time to answer those questions, they will find a person like this for you. So they might even tell you, oh, sorry, I'm either new here or I don't know so much, but I don't know, one of my colleagues has been in the tea industry for a long time and he is in the shop on Wednesday. Please come back on Wednesday. Like they will always try and help you learn about tea. I'm not saying that all of the information will be 100% correct, because I don't know all of the tea shops of Palais de Thé in France. There are 70 or something like this, or 60, I don't remember, but there's a lot. But I'm saying that you can go there a little bit more confidently than other tea shops. There's a second thing. And then I think if you want to know about tea, but we've already talked about this earlier, you should do the internship program at Obubu. I think it's the best place because not only you will learn about Japanese tea, but it will teach you so much about Japanese tea that you will start and wonder, oh, but then if it's like this in Japan, it's probably like this in the other tea countries as well. And this will kind of open your vision and understand more how complex it is. It won't give you necessarily out of the answers to your questions, but it will tell you there are many answers to a single question, and it will tell you how many more questions there might be around tea. I'm pretty sure that every intern at Obubu would tell you I went out of Obubu with more questions than when I arrived, but it's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, that's what happened with me too.
Yeah.
I came in with 100, I left with 2.
Yeah.
100.
200, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. Then, what tea-related achievement are you most proud of?
I think the day I harvested, processed my own gyokuro was the thing I was the most proud of, because it turned out really tasty. I really loved it. I really liked the tea, and usually when I don't like, and especially not right away, the things that I make, it's very difficult. I always have have high expectations, and if there's this slight like problem, I'll be like, oh no, it's bad because I didn't do this properly, or it could have been better. And I'm not saying it couldn't have been better. I'm saying that it was very tasty, the gyokuro. So I really, really, I was so proud of myself, and it's not something that I don't think it happens very often in one's life to be proud of yourself that much. I was also very happy because it felt like I was also I have an amazing teacher for processing in Japan. Hiro-san is great, and the fact that I was able to do a good gyokuro made me also happy, because it was a way of also saying to Hiro-san, like, you're a good teacher as well, and I was proud of my teacher as well. It felt like it was not only me who did that; it was also the teaching I received. And I was happy to be able to show this to Hiro-san and being like, you see, like I used your teaching like as much as I could, and it's a good result. I was very happy that day. I feel like even if the tea wouldn't have been so tasty, I would have been proud anyway, to be honest, because I did it alone for, I think it was 5 hours non-stop processing, where I didn't ask for help. I didn't have any problems. Everything ran smoothly. So I was also quite lucky, because our factory at Obubu has like glitches everywhere sometimes. So anyway, I was very, very happy. And I think I was even more happy the next day when Kayo-san tried my tea and said that my gyokuro tasted like Aki-san's gyokuro. And I was like, there's no way she invented that. Right. There's no way she just came with this as in like, oh, I'm going to say that and Jean will be happy. So for sure she thinks that. And that's great. That's just so nice. Well, I think it's the best compliment I could ever receive.
It's also backed up by Nakai Sensei.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean,
Moe as well. They both said it's really good. You make good tea, Jean.
Yes. But I think even though it was really, really nice of Moe and Nakai Sensei for like giving me feedback, and I know it's true. I think that it's more of I'm sometimes a very negative person, and I feel a little bit like they didn't really have also a choice to tell me that, because it's a gift you give and they're not going to tell me if they don't like it.
Okay, let me put it this way then. I didn't receive the gift, but I heard before you heard this, I heard Moy telling me that it was George, and forgive me because this could seem rude, but please don't take it that way. She was like, George, it was really good. She was like almost a bit surprised. And Nakai Sensei also, they were tasting it and they said it was so good. So I heard this before you heard this.
Okay.
And they said exactly the same thing.
Okay. I'm happy.
so honestly, don't feel like it was because of that. And because Moy also said to me, like, genuinely, it was really good.
But I know she liked it. I know she liked it. Yeah. I'm not saying she lied to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think also I like hearing it I like when I hear this kind of comments from somebody else. I don't know, like not directly from the person, because I feel like, oh, it's probably true then if they're telling somebody else. But yeah, so thank you for
no.
I mean, I like this also.
You are a good tea maker.
I also think maybe I got super lucky. I think I don't think I'm bad. I think I'm just normal. But on that day, also gyokuro is easy to process, to be honest.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, no, it's true.
All these
I did some sencha that were not so good as well.
Okay.
sencha is more difficult.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Especially when you have maybe a cultivar that's more dry, or the moisture level is low. For those ones, it's quite tricky to get it right.
Autumn was very difficult because
Yeah.
I was burning the leaves all the time, and Hyo-san would tell me, "This is too dry. This is too dry."
It's difficult to know because you think maybe it needs a bit more, but actually it's dry enough.
I learned with spring leaves.
Yeah.
So I tried to apply what I learned with autumn leaves, and that's a conversation I had with Miwako, because Miwako first learned with bancha.
Yeah, me too.
With autumn.
Yeah.
And then spring.
Yeah.
So when you are moving to another season, you have to unlearn what you've learned, learn new things, and apply it. The thing is, in the processing factory, and so many things happen at the same time that you are on automatic mode for most of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So when I was doing bancha, I was doing a lot of things that I didn't need to do because it was bancha and not sencha. So yeah, I don't know which one it's better to start with.
It's tricky. Well, for me, I think it's better to start with bancha because you get a less pressurized environment to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because then when you get to spring, like you're ready to like learn it properly. There's more steps involved. But you've already had a bit of practice in the bancha. So I preferred it that way around, but I didn't experience it the other way around. But that was because during my internship I did autumn, and then I came back as a staff member and did spring. So I just had it naturally that way around. But yeah, it's good fun though.
Also, when I started in spring, I already had quite a full month of making tea in Nepal with Apsara.
That's true.
So I already had a little bit of like knowledge when it comes to like how dry the tea should be at the end.
Yeah. How it should feel.
And things like that.
I did have a quick question about Apsara. Where could someone buy Apsara's tea? If they wanted to buy some tea from Apsara, or that Apsara had made, where would they look?
As of now, if you find a tea that comes from the factory called Kalapani, it's Apsara made it. Not necessarily only her. Maybe it was a team involvement thing where other people from Kalapani's industry added some of their like touch to it, but I think that makes it even more interesting. But she is the tea maker, so she is the one who makes the tea really. So as of now, it will be any tea that comes from Kalapani, and I don't know where you can find it because in France there is only one place for now that I know where you can find it, and it's Palais d'été. And then there is for instance, I know there's a tea shop in Berlin that sells it. It's a coffee place that is called Companion Coffee. So if you want to go to that place and ask them, do you have tea from Kalapani? They might have some because they buy directly from Apsara and from Prakash, who's in charge of the Kalapani factory. But it's a very small factory. And it's only 16 tea farmers. So, and they handpick the tea. So there's not a lot. It's very rare. And I think it's a good thing for them that it's rare because it's delicious. So it kind of...
it's a beautiful place as well.
Wow. I would actually, the best thing you could do is go there and visit.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about when you were there, but when I went, there wasn't to get there, you had to leave the main road and go like around a mountain road for a few hours before you reached where the factory and some accommodation was.
Yes.
It was in the middle of nowhere.
It was
beautiful.
Middle of nowhere.
And I'd never seen a rhododendron tree until that point.
Sorry?
A rhododendron tree? A tree?
Rhododendron, yeah. Oh, they are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in winter.
And there's the crazy honey.
Yes, that's dangerous honey.
And they get the pollen from the rhododendron tree.
Yeah. And it gets you a little bit high.
Yeah.
I didn't try though. They didn't have when I was.
No, but I did enjoy the yak cheese. You didn't enjoy?
I don't like.
No. Okay. Right.
Too strong.
Or tongwa?
Is that the very hard cheese?
No, the tongwa is the metal canisters where they've fermented some. I forget what they've.
The ghee?
No,
With
this is
butter?
an alcoholic drink with a straw.
With the yes. That I
Tom.
had Tokpa. Yes,
Yeah.
I had a lot.
They're so delicious.
It's so delicious, so dangerous.
Yeah, you get pretty drunk.
They use millet.
Millet. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's very sweet. It's delicious.
So tasty.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll have to go back.
Yeah.
I would actually really enjoy that. I'm always looking for a reason to make my way.
Let's actually go back together. That would be nice.
No, I would really enjoy that. Okay, right. Here's one that's a little bit different. You haven't heard this one yet. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, metaphorically speaking, getting a message out to millions or billions, what would it say and why? It could be a few words. It could be a paragraph. It can be someone else's quote. It could be anything.
Can I put an enormous don't worry, tea is good. Would that work?
That works, yeah.
And then people be like, what?
Of course it is.
Yeah, and then people who know tea, they'll be like, yeah, we don't have to worry because tea is good. And people who don't know really about tea, maybe they'll be like, this person is crazy. I think I would put that. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, don't worry, tea is good. Okay, and one last question.
Yeah.
What does your future with tea look like?
I guess we'll have to figure out. I don't know. For now, I don't know.
Okay. Excited?
Yes. Because I know that even if I don't necessarily work in the tea industry, I will always keep traveling and meet tea farmers. That's what I want to do. And I'm excited. Unfortunately, in this very capitalist world, we need money. But I feel like I have the knowledge to get me where I want to go. And this is the hardest part. This is the most difficult thing to get. And I think like I have enough connections as well to find and experience more. And I want to visit so many tea countries, and I don't know what's going to stop me, honestly. I just need to have a job, and I can have that, so it's okay. Yeah. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Well, this summertime, I'll be in Europe, or mainly in the UK, but I've already spoken with Obubu people, and so I think I'll be in Europe for a bit longer. So I'm thinking about coming over to France. So we should do a tea class. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yes.
We might have to do a weekend though, Jean. Is that okay?
Oh no, I sleep on weekends.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Is it going to be possible?
Of course. It's easier on weekends because then I won't be working.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we can figure that out. I think at some point I need to go back to Nepal, and I want to go see all the cool tea people I met while I was there. And I think we could bring a bunch of other people along with us. I would love to go to Junchia Valley again. It's a really cool place with cool people.
I didn't go, so yeah.
Awesome, really cool place.
Go too. Yeah.
And it's a lot of cool stuff. Well, I'm really excited for Jean's tea adventures in the future.
I'm actually looking forward to your future in tea as well. I feel like you're like me. Nothing's going to stop you to like go and visit other places as well, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I love tea, and I want to share tea with as many people as possible. And if I'm able to share tea stories along the way and promote other people's tea adventures and tea projects, then I think it's only a positive thing. So, I mean, I haven't really shared with you like what is the point of all of this, but I want to be able to like introduce other people to other interesting tea people, all over the world. And I have to say a big thank you because you are the first person who has done this. and was just like, yeah, okay, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah,
So-
but honestly, it's very easy. I just have to sit here and answer questions while you take care of all of the technical stuff and preparation and even scheduling. So it's okay.
Wow, you've
It
been
was
very kind
really
with
nice.
your flexibility as well. So I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, as soon as this is available, I'll be really excited to share it with you.
Mm.
And if people wanted to reach out to you, like where would be best to reach out to you?
I'm a big Instagram guy.
Yeah.
So Instagram is good.
Okay.
I don't know how they can find me though. But
Do you want to share your Instagram or
I mean, it's my name. So
Jean Rosas?
yes,
At Jean Rosas.
I think you can find me that way.
Yeah, I think it's
so.
probably the easiest.
There are some pictures in the tea field, so that
100%.
that
I
helps.
mean,
And it's a public Instagram.
head to peopleoftea.com and go into Tea People and have a look for Jean Rosas. And you'll be able to find transcript of today's interview.
Or that.
Yeah, some photos. And I'll put some contact details there for you as well.
Okay, great.
Deja
Yes, it's totally okay.
Okay. Arigato.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean. Enjoy Japan.
I'm leaving in 2 days. What are you talking about?
Well, it's a bit sad. Oh, Jean.
Thank you.
Arigato. I'm so sorry it was so long.
No.
Bye-bye.
Bye.